If you're an aspiring lead guitarist, you've probably heard the phrase playing over chord changes, and it's something of a holy grail level of playing for a lot of guitarists. It's the difference between just noodling around and hoping for the best and playing with real melodic intention. Problem is, it's a subject that's kind of mysterious and spooky because of the way it's taught sometimes. But it doesn't have to be. If your soloing sounds like disconnected noodling right now, let's fix it. I'm going to show you some really easy but super effective ways to start playing over chord changes, and you're going to start sounding more professional, polished, and melodic. Each exercise that we play is going to build on the previous one, and by the end of the video, you just might blow your own mind with what you're able to play. I'm Charlie Long. Grab your guitar. Let's get into it. The first thing we need if we're going to play through chord changes is some chords. For the video today, we're going to play our examples over Little Groove in the key of C. We've got the chords A minor, D minor, D minor 7, G7, back to A minor 7, and then we're throwing in an E7 plus 9 or the Hendrix chord. If we're really going to start paying attention to the chords and trying to play notes that really bring out the sound of the chords, probably the easiest way to get started doing that is just to play the root note over the chord as the chords change. Here's how I want you to start practicing that. Pick a spot on the neck. Let's start in the 5th position with the A on the 5th fret of the E string. We've got a D note at the 5th fret of the A string, a G note at the 5th fret of the D string, then there's another A at fret 7 of the D string, and an E at the 7th fret of the A string. So we just covered the root of each chord in our progression. Now we can even stay in the same spot of the neck. Start over with the A on the D string. There's a D at fret 7 of the G string, a G at fret 8 of the B string, an A at fret 10 of the B string, an E at fret 9 of the G string. Now let's make this sound musical when we practice by adding 2 simple phrasing elements. We're going to do an upward slide into each note and then give it some vibrato. Let's go to one more spot and find these notes, and then I'm going to play them over the backing track. How about A at the 14th fret of the G string, D at fret 15 of the B string, G at fret 15 of the high E, A at fret 17, and then E at fret 17 of the B string. Let me play through these 3 positions, and let's try to make it musical with good timing and phrasing. Here we go. So I wanted to mention, if you like these videos and you find them helpful, I've got a couple of courses out right now designed to give you a great foundation in both theory and technique for playing lead guitar. Links are in the description below, and as always, I appreciate your support. Okay, so just playing the root note, it starts to get our brains and our ears acclimated to being aware of and playing something connected to each chord. What's the next step? Well, let's add the next chord tone, and we're going to play the root and the 3rd of each chord as the chords change. If you don't know how chords are made and how to find chord tones, well, let's make it real simple. We already established we're playing in the key of C major, and here are the notes of that scale on the A string to make it easy to visualize. If we start on a note and we call that note the root note, let's use C as an example, we can count over to the 3rd note we come to, which is E, and we say that E is the 3rd of C. If we do that for each of the chords on our backing track, we find out that C is the 3rd of A, F is the 3rd of D, B is the 3rd of G, and G is the 3rd of E. Now the 3rd is a great sounding interval, very expressive. And we're going to repeat the first exercise we did with the root, but with the third. And we're going to slide into the third of each chord as the chords change, then add a little vibrato. Now this might feel a little weird. I can remember when I first tried this kind of exercise many years ago, and I found it really challenging to target notes other than the root note of a chord. Now you can even practice this exercise without the backing track because the root note of each one of our chords can be played on an open string. Here's A and C, D and F, G and B, A and C again, and then there's E and G. And of course, you could play those anywhere on the neck. Okay, that was kind of fun. Let's add a little more phrasing to what we're doing here. We're going to play the third of each chord, but then we're going to drop down to the second of each chord and bend it back up to the third. For A minor, that would be B bending up to C. For D minor, that would be E bending up to F. Over G7, that would be A bending up to B. And over the E7 plus 9, that would be F bending up to G. So let's play the third on the downbeat. We're going to play the second and bend it up on the and of 1. And we're going to hold that note through the and of 2. At that point, we're going to play the bent note again and release it. And that's going to be 16th notes. Then we're going to play the root note and hold it for the last beat and a half. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the idea. Let me run through the progression a couple times over the backing track, and I think you're going to hear this is already sounding very melodic. That's sounding pretty nice. How about we add another note and make up another phrase with it? Let's add the 7th of each chord, or the note in the scale that's right underneath the root. So G, it's the minor 7th of A. C is the minor 7th of D. F is the flat 7 of G. And D is the flat 7 of E. The phrase we're going to play is a little longer. Over the A minor, we're going to play G, hammer onto the A with the ring finger, pull off back to the G, and then slide up into the A. Next, we're going to play the C or the third. We're going to play G again on the string below, so it's on the G string, and then play the A root, slide back to the 7th and into the root again. That whole lick. One more time. And we can do that over each chord. We're going to kind of have to speed things up in that last measure over A minor, where we split the measure with A minor and that E7 plus 9. Okay, so far we've been using what we call chord tones, the root, the third, and the 7th of each chord to make up a melodic phrase. Let's go ahead now and add the 5th interval of each chord. That's going to give us the 1, 3, 5, and 7 of each chord, which also happens to be the formula for a 7th arpeggio. So with our progression, we've got A minor 7, D minor 7, G7, and that E7 plus 9, which we're going to treat as an E7 for now. We're going to start our new phrase over each chord on the 5th and then play the root. For A minor, that would be E and A. Over D minor, that's A and D. Over G7, that would be D and G. And over that E7 plus 9, it would be a B note and an E note. And going from the fifth to the root, it just sets up the root so nicely, and it makes it sound really strong. So our phrase, we're going to play the fifth and the root, the second, the third, go back to the second, bend it up to the third and release it, and play the root, the seventh, and the root. We're going to slide down to the seventh and back, and we're going to end the phrase over each chord on the fifth. It's interesting to me that we're basically playing a seventh arpeggio over each chord, but because we're adding in the second and we're doing some bends and slides, my brain isn't thinking, oh yeah, another boring arpeggio. I'm hearing more of an expressive melodic statement, which is what we're going for. Let me play these phrases over our track. Here we go. Here's something else I want you to think about when you're practicing. You can and you should be trying to play these licks, and really any lick you come up with, anywhere on the neck that you can play it. There's an A on the A string at fret 12. We can play our last phrase there. There's an A at the 7th fret of the D string. Let's play it there. How about the A at the 14th fret of the G string? Yep, works there too. We've got an A at the 10th fret of the B string. And lastly, there's an A at fret 17 of the high E. This is a great way to increase your fretboard knowledge and just really get used to the feel of the neck, the different fret widths in different places, even the differences in how the strings feel and what you have to do to bend or slide on them. Only good things come out of playing everything you learn everywhere you can. Something important to remember. We're going to add one more device to play over chord changes with, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, because I want to do a follow-up to this video focusing on playing over changes with pentatonic scales. But let's just take pattern 1 of A minor, and we're going to ascend through the pattern starting on the G string, playing up to the high E string, and then descending back to our starting note. Over D minor, let's play that same pattern up at the 10th position. Over the G7 chord, we're going to play pattern 5 of G major, and it's the same shape as pattern 1 of minor pentatonic, but we're going to hear that G root. We're going to go back to A minor, but stop on the E string. And then over the E7 plus 9, play that E minor pattern 1, and the same pattern that we played over G major, but stopping on the E string. The minor pentatonic works really well over that chord. The chord has the notes E, G, G sharp, and D. In E minor pentatonic, well, we've got E, G, and D. So it outlines the chord pretty nicely. Once again, I'm going to play these phrases over the chords so you can hear how nicely they fit. Let's give it a go. All of this is leading up to the ultimate goal of these exercises, and that's to build up an internal library of licks and phrases that you know are going to work over certain kinds of chords. And then you'll be able to use them at will when you improvise and play solos. Let's mix up some of the phrases that we made up today and play them over the track. Over A minor, I'll play the phrase with the third and the root. Over D minor, let's play the phrase that starts on the fifth. Over G major, the phrase that starts on the seventh. And over A minor in the E7 plus 9, I'm going to play our pentatonic phrase, shorten to fit the measure, and we'll even ascend over the A minor and descend over the E7 plus 9. Here we go. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you're on your way to getting your brain, your ears, and your fingers a lot more used to addressing each chord in a progression instead of just winging a bunch of licks that you know are in the same key and hoping it works out. You're going to be able to hit the most important notes, and your playing, it's just going to sound way more intentional, polished, and melodic. Those are all good things. Hey, check out my courses if you're so inclined. Until next time, work hard, play hard, have fun with that guitar. I'll see you soon.